How the hell are all of you? With yours truly, Petrov. I go back with another mother lover. You already know the deal. Grab your smoke, grab your drink, and lock it with your boy, because we back with another one. We're back with another hot take. Now, this hot take, this is going to be about police and government agencies. Now, this is going to be a tad different because I've talked about the police before, and I've said that I have yet to meet a good cop, but I do hold out hope. I have no doubt that there's good cops out there, but I do believe there's a lot more bad cops in certain areas of the country, in certain cities, in certain pockets. That's just a belief that I have. Now, this is the hot take. I said it before that I don't believe all cops are dirty, but I've yet to meet a good one. Not all cops can be Serpico, or they can, but the backlash stems from that nobody wants to touch. And when I say the backlash, if you've ever seen the movie Serpico, everybody and their mama turns on him. If you've ever seen Chicago PD, when Atwood goes against the police all of a sudden don't show up. You know, when Ruzick goes after the police in Chicago PD, police don't show up. Now, these are TV shows. These aren't these aren't real events, but still an example of sorts, right? Now, the blue flu, etc., is a true thing. We've seen it and heard of it, and we've heard of it happening in some points in history. There was some expectation of it maybe happening under Derek Chauvin. I think that expectation was a bit clownish, to be honest. And I say that because in Derek Chauvin's case, what he did was atrocious. Was atrocious. He shouldn't have did what he did. He shouldn't have kneeled on George Floyd's neck. I think that's something that everybody can get behind. But there's definitely George Floyd should have comprehended. He shouldn't have tried to get on the ground. He should have been sitting in the back of the car. Shouldn't have tried to use counterfeit money. He shouldn't have been high on fentanyl. There's a million things he shouldn't have did. But there's one thing that Derek Chauvin shouldn't have did, and that was kneel on his neck for an extended period of time. Now, all the circumstances surrounding that are completely different, but that's not the hot take here. The hot take is, I think the idea that bad cops protecting bad cops seems kind of idiotic. Hear me out. Bad cops aren't going to protect bad cops unless it suits them, which makes the most sense. Bad cops are aware of the union and what protection it entitles. We live in a reality, not a Chicago PD episode, where Voight is the dirtiest standard for police. We live in a reality where statistics surrounding the cops, their arrests, their timing, etc., are assumed to be lies. We have people who believe the statistics that are shown are lies. Hence why we have people who preach black men are being gunned down daily by cops when that just isn't the case. The radical left gets mad at the statistic that shows black people commit the majority of the crime in the United States. Shoot, we have the ADL saying it's terms used by the white supremacists against the black community. So the statistic that it's 13% of the crime commits 50% of the population. They're saying that is a white supremacist term. Again, very ballsy comment on ADL's behalf, but they're known for making ballsy comments, right? Now, when I say bad cops will only protect bad cops if it suits them, think about that for a second. Why would a bad cop go out of their way to protect Derek Chauvin so they can let everyone know that they're a bad cop? No, they gotta let that homeboy fry. Why? That's why Blue Flu didn't happen. Because of where the entire temperature went, the protesting, the rioting, the looting, the crime, the murder, all those things that entitled all of that wave of violence that whole summer was somehow on Derek Chauvin's shoulders. Because if he wouldn't have did what he did, that may not have popped off the way it did. That's why cops could definitely not show up at the courtroom. Like, you know what, he was kind of a good guy, he made a mistake. Or not show up, you know what I mean? Because they had a bunch of cops that did show up against him in his favor. Against him, you know what I mean? So, when I think of it like that, I think right now, in 2021, we have the police force as one, and we have the radical left as another. The radical left thinks that they can police their own, when we have plenty of examples that prove that's just not the case, but they still hold true to that. If they could run the Chaz, they would run the Chaz still to this day. Believe that. If they could still run George Floyd Square the way they had it all blocked off, this, that, other, they would still do that. Do not get it twisted. They're not here to reason. You know what I mean? The radical left is not here to reason with you. They're here to make you understand what they're going to do and implement what they're going to do, whether you like it or not. They've proven that time and time again. But when I say there's the police and the radical left, the police, as a whole, you got a lot of bad apples in there, right? all the way up the chain, whether it's a candidate, whether it's a prospect, whether it's a rookie, whether it's a sergeant, whether it's a lieutenant, whether it's a captain. You got bad apples up the whole fucking thing, right? There's bad apples everywhere. So let's keep that in mind. Now you have the radical left. So we don't have a hierarchy. We don't have none of that. We all run together as one. That's a clear lie. Plenty of hierarchies been out there. The Black Lives Matter leaders, Antifa leaders, so on and so forth. But you have one group that has yelled so loud in a megaphone. They've had the radical movement they want hit DC. And not only did it hit DC, they tried to implement that shit across the country in certain states, such as Minneapolis and Minnesota. Minneapolis said, nah, the city council don't need no more power, rah, rah, rah. Then they got rid of some crazy leftists and put in 3 democratic socialists. So that's why I've said Minneapolis is in a perpetual state of insanity until they can somehow break the cycle of allowing crazy leftists to run the city. But when I think about the crazy leftist, the radical left, and I think about the police, I think the police are held to a standard that the radical left continually moves the goalpost. It doesn't matter if it's a good shoot, if it's a good arrest, it does not make a difference. The radical left will make the goalpost move because they need it to move. It'll move with the narrative that they move and shift. They've proven that time and time again. There's no reason to think that they're going to come with any type of good faith argument or any kind of being genuine. You know, I mean, they're going to be disingenuous from the jump. They're going to have bad faith arguments from the jump. They're going to try to gaslight you. They're going to try to irritate you. They're going to try to rile you up just to win their menial argument. Now, the thing that really throws me is when people say that, like the ADL saying it's white supremacist term. How do you think that makes the police look? And then how do you think that makes the radical left look? If someone looks that up, how do you think that makes the police look? And how do you think that makes the radical left look? When you see the ADL say, "Oh, you know, it's white supremacist terms," you know, that even though it's a real statistic and even though it's the truth, white supremacists use that in their arguments. So that means everybody that's ever used it in an argument, including Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, Anthony Bryant Logan, Bryson Gray, so on and so forth, they're racist. White supremacist racist. Not crazy, you know? Now, not only that, we have people saying that the crime isn't skyrocketing or climbing up. And that's where I really started to believe, like, what reality do we live in? Especially when the people that are pitching this are on the radical left, and the people that have to withstand that bullshit is the police force. The radical left is trying to dismantle at any curve possible. So when I think of the police and I think of government agencies, I think the police right now have a real hard job, especially when it comes to doing their job as police. Whether it's trying to be Serpico, whether it's trying to be a good cop on the job, or whether you're trying to be the good cop that exposes bad cops. No one likes a snitch, and we've seen that time and time again. So nobody wants there to be a Serpico in their office. Nobody wants a Serpico to be in their building, but sometimes a Serpico is needed because sometimes the entire building is a dirty piece of shit building and needs to be brought down for what it is. Now, was the third precinct a dirty ass police precinct? I have no idea if it was or not. There was never any argument that it was, but yet it still burned down during the George Floyd riots. So when I think of the radical left and I think of the police, and I think of how they interact with each other, and then the rest of the world has to see it, and the rest of the United States has to see it and deal with it, especially when you live in these cities that are pushing these radical agendas, these radical ideas. Then you really see what kind of bullshit they want to push, like Ilhan Omar, AOC, so on and so forth. But this is where I really start to fuddle my mind. We have police, and we have police, and we have had police enforce mandates on businesses to a point that protest had to take place. We have had police that will break their oath to keep their job in a simple sense. Those officers are just as bad as dirty officers, and those officers are just as bad as the radical left. Because those officers are not going to stand for the people they are sworn to protect and serve. They're going to stand for what their job title says. And that job title could change right now, tomorrow, the next day. And they'll still stand for it, even though they're like, oh, I didn't sign up for those next 10 rules you just put in play. That was not a part of my original contract. You know what I mean? Like when you have to sign a handbook when you sign up, when you get a new job, if they change the handbook, they're supposed to have you sign the new handbook. So I read the new handbook. Well, if you don't like the handbook, you might be able to kind of argue some shit. But when you're an officer and you have to take an oath that I'm going to protect and serve and I'm going to do right by the people, and you end up doing things that aren't right by the people, like things that happened in California with the lady that wanted to open a restaurant, or the gym in New Jersey. Look at what police went to shut that shit down. But then when looting and rioting was happening, where were the police? Hands were tied. So they could have broke their oath right then, and they could have broke the, oh, now I'm gonna go make some arrests. I'm gonna take the backlash from the mayor and the city because this shit just isn't right. Or we're gonna bow down to what the mayor says and what the city says, and we're gonna ruin lives because that's what we're told to do. As Tim Pool says, as Luke Gronkowski says, if they're just doing their job, is that really the right way about things? Now, I'm not like Michael Malice that says all cops are evil pieces of shit, but I do think they need to be held to a higher standard. But I also think they need to have the funding that is there. And when you think of these big agencies such as the FBI, the CIA, the ATF, they have a lot more funding than these local police, the state police, so on and so forth. They have a lot more funding. And then what they're able to do, especially like in the CIA's case, they go all around the world doing whatever little covert missions they got going on. Now, if I had to pick which one is worse, I would probably say the government agencies are going to be worse because they work hand in hand with the actual government. Old Johnny Law down the street with the red and blue, he's not really dealing with the local politicians. You know what I mean? Now the FBI and so on and so forth, they do deal with politicians, so on and so forth. And Louder Crowder brought up an episode in their last week, and it had to do with the CIA being a part of some child porn, sex issue, sexist, some sex with kids, all this extra weirdo shit that should just not have been happening, period. Especially when it came down to some of it was on company time, company computers, company this, that, other thing. We have agents in the United States that are going to be a part of our agencies and are supposed to be taking oaths of office and doing right by our country, domestic and abroad, right? And then you're going to go do some just terrible, evil shit. And then somehow you're able to get away with it because of what you do know, because of the missions you've been on. See, that's fucked up. And that's where I say the FBI, and the same with the FBI. Think about how far they got to go with the Trump and the Hillary scandal. Look at how they were able to dig into Trump for what? Nothing. Look how much money was spent on the Russian hoax. Nothing. Look how much money has been spent on January 6th, and it means nothing. You know what I mean? But yet they'll still say something. They'll still try to make little breadcrumbs match, just like Hillary's little puppets did. FBI puppets playing a game, and this is what we end up with. Some true fuckery in its own right. But when I think of all these things happening on scales the size of the police, the FBI, the CIA, etc., we truly do have an issue. And that's where I think the hot take really comes down to be, if you're going to be an officer, you need to understand the job that you're taking, especially in this day and age. You're going to have a whole group of people that hate you and are going to twist everything you do to fit their narrative. Just look at what they're doing, what Black Lives Matter is doing with Jussie Smollett right now. Saying they're going to take the side of Jussie Smollett, even though he's a proven liar. And they're going to rock with him because they believe all Chicago police are evil pieces of lying shit. Think about that for a moment. Let that sink in. Now the FBI, the CIA, these agencies, they don't really have no little foe like the radical left going against them. So they're able to run around doing whatever the fuck they want, lying here, doing this, lying again, doing this, lying again, doing that. And nothing happens. But when it comes down to the police that are supposed to, be on the streets protecting and serving, they get the full book thrown at them no matter if they're innocent or guilty. And the guilty cops seem to still be the cops on the field when the good cops seem to be taking the beating. Now, maybe some of these good cops should form together and maybe build the name Serpico so there's enough of them to go against these evil motherfucking cops that make such a bad name for them. But until then, who knows really what we can do. But when I think about the police, I'm always going to stick to I've yet to meet a good one. I've yet to meet one that did make me feel like they was going to, write me up over some dumb shit. And that could be because I'm a stoner in a state that's decriminalized it 30 years ago, but will still arrest you if they get the opportunity to. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's all cops, but that's a lot of the cops that I've run across. There's a lot of cops in Minnesota that seem to have a power complex about them. Not saying that's all of them, But a lot of the ones I've run across seem to have a power complex. Now, I'm not no person that's going to go videotape them and get all up in their craw, this, that, the other. I'm going to still show them respect until they don't show me that respect. And then I can call them names, this, that, and I can pull out the same laws that assholes do when they whip out their phones. You know what I mean? But that is, when I think of law enforcement, I think it can always be fuck 12, it can always be fuck the police, but you can have an understanding of what the police is there for and why they're there and what they're supposed to do. And if they're not doing that, then you need to get a new police force that is willing to do what they're supposed to do. And if that means getting rid of all the bad cops, then that's what needs to be done, and that means more serpicos need to come out to play. The government needs to stop tying the hands of the police force. They need to stop making the ropes tighter around the wrist. They need to start letting the police be actual police and do things they need to do to actually get rid of the criminals and prevent the crime at hand. That is as simple as that gets. The FBI, the CIA really needs to stay the fuck out of a whole lot of things and maybe become more of a desk jockey until they can get a lot of the bullshit they've been a part of under wraps and maybe fix some of that bullshit. But that's what I got for y'all. Hope y'all stay blazed. I hope y'all stay blessed. I hope y'all stay safe. And know this one. It can always be fuck 12, but I've never met a good cop. But it's always going to be fuck the FBI and the CIA agents that want to play dirty ass games, whether it's lying, fiddling with kids, or doing things that they know damn well they shouldn't be doing because they are in the position they're in. Peace.